This is an introduction to file input and output in C++. So for file input and output, we're going to include a library called fstream. And stream is in IO stream, input output stream, and fstream file stream. Stream is in, think of a stream of water flowing. It's a flowing of characters to and from the file. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, I will demonstrate file output first. So the first thing we're going to do is create a file. So I'm going to do that with ofstream class from the fstream library. And then I'm going to give it my object name. I'm going to call it fout just so we can contrast it with the cout command. But then we need parentheses and in quotations the name of the file that we're going to create. I'll just call it output.txt. And you can use whichever extension you want, but I'm just putting txt so it opens by default with Notepad. Okay, and if that file already exists, this is going to override it. So now in the program, it's real simple to do file output. If we go cout, then this is on the screen, then this is going to come up on the console screen. But now if we do an fout, and now this is in the file. Okay, and so you can use it very much just like the cout statement, but this is going to go into the file. Now, it is customary to close the file at the end of the program, even though when your program exits, it will close the file, but you can just go fout.close that will close that file. Okay, so now when I run it, then it pops up, this is on the screen because this pops up the console, so the cout command goes, output goes there, and then it also created a file named output.txt in the same folder as my CPP program. Okay, so if I double click it, then you can see this is in the file, so that's what was created. Okay, so now the reasons for file output. So perhaps you have a lot of data that needs to be saved, too big to fit on the console, or you just want to save it, so that's one idea. Another thing is that programs will, a lot of programs will save configuration information in files, so you'll need to read it and then modify it and output it again. Another thing that's popular, a lot of programs will do logging. They will log all the events that happen within the program, and that can really help if the program crashes to the desktop or something like that, and then you can pull up the program and look at the log and see the last thing that happened before the program crashed, for example. Okay, so now let's go to file input. Okay, so for file input, we're going to do the IF stream, input file stream. And let's name it, we can name it whatever we want, but let's name it FN. So that we can contrast it with the cin statement. And I'm gonna use data.txt that I've already created. Okay, so I'm going to input information from this file that's already created. So let's look at this file, data.txt. Okay, so it's just a text file, and what I've done is I've put 10 numbers in this file, and these numbers need to be separated by spaces or a line return. And also sometimes you'll see this. Sometimes they will call each data item in a file. Sometimes they will call that a token. So if you're reading stuff online, you'll see that used. So this has 10 tokens in it. Okay. Another term is delimiter. The delimiting character, what separates the data items, is a space. Because you can have space delimited space delimited files. You could have comma delimited files where everything is separated by commas. So that's the delimiter. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to do fn.close just to close that file in the program, even though it'll still work if you don't do that. Okay, so now just to see if it works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable, and then I'm going to do the fn, and you'll use it. You can use it with the redirect just like a cin statement. Fn into a, and now let's see out the value of a. And I'm doing this. This is probably the first thing you should do just to make sure that you're reading the file. So let's run it, and it pops up the number 20. And if we look at the file, it is the number 20. And again, that file needs to be in the same folder. Here it is, data.txt. That needs to be in the same folder as your CPP file right here. I mean, alternatively, in your program, you could put a path name here, whatever. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but that's possible, or on Mac. Okay, now let's talk about reading all the data. So remember, we have 10 numbers in this file. So, and this is very popular to do file input. If you have a program that has a lot of data, you could have thousands of numbers, millions of numbers, all sorts of data. Well, that data you're going to have in a separate file. You're not going to do a cin statement in there. So file input is a very common thing to do when you're working with data. Okay, so what we can do, though, to read all the data, we can do a while loop. And one neat little trick to do is just do while fn into a. So this will be true as long as there's another token in the file. But when you get to the last token, then this will go to false. Okay, so what it does, there's a pointer, there's a file pointer. And so the first time you do an fn statement, it will read the first token. The next time you do an fn statement, it will read the next token, and so forth. Okay, so, let's just see out the value of a and an end-l within our while loop. And run it, and there it is. There's all 10 of the numbers that we read in there. Okay, now let's take this to the next step. Let's say that you want to sum up all the numbers. You want to count all the numbers, because this does not require you knowing how many tokens or how many numbers are in that file. That's why this is nice. You don't have to hard code a number. But let's just say if you want to count how many numbers there were, well, let's just create a separate variable. I'll name it count and initialize it to 0. And then, as long as we're reading all the numbers, let's sum them all up. So I'll create another variable sum and initialize that to 0 also. So now, as we're reading the numbers, we can increment count, because we're counting how many numbers we read. And then also, as we're reading each number, let's add it to sum. Or I'll do a plus, sum plus equals to a. Because the number's being read right up here in the while loop condition. And so then we can count and sum and output it. Now, after the while loop is finished, then let's just go ahead and output sum is equal to sum, and then count is equal to count, like that. Okay, so now it read all the numbers. Count, it read 10 numbers. And then here's the sum of all those numbers right there. Okay, so, alternatively, you could read them all into an array if you need to store the numbers inside your program to work with them in different ways and stuff like that. But if you don't need to store the numbers, if you just need to do a sum and a count, then this is a nice little way to do that. Okay, so I think that concludes a brief introduction to file input and output in C++.